Hello, how's it going, you beautiful bugger? Your Uncle Spurt's finally back from his Shenzhen shenanigans and spent the best part of a week out in China checking out Huawei's latest tech, as well as knocking back enough Tsingtao to drown a hippo, and eating so much sweet and sour that my shits would have probably exploded a Geiger counter. I would like to just apologise to the hotel cleaning staff for basically melting that toilet bowl. Oh, and you might not want to look in the right hand desk drawer. Yeah. Now, for a lot of the trip, we hung out at the Huawei campus, which was absolutely batshit mental. The whole thing was apparently inspired by famous European cities, including Bologna, Paris and Budapest, complete with miniature versions of some of their famous buildings, monuments and bridges. And sadly, at the Bruges section, there was absolutely bugger all signs of a bar where I could drink 15% beer out of an old manky shoe. They even had a dinky version of Lake Windermere here in Blighty, but it wasn't very convincing. I didn't get so much as a sniff of any raw sewage, and I didn't see a single duck with an empty packet of Monster Munch stuck on its head. But during our short visit, we also had the chance to test out one of Huawei's autonomous cars. That's right, the driver isn't actually touching that steering wheel or the pedals. In fact, the only touching that's actually going on was me, very much touching cloth. And I also spent a lot of time playing with Huawei's latest flagship blower, the Pura 70 Ultra, which will set you back no less than €1,500. The camera on this thing is frankly absolutely nuts. You can check out my full review of the Pura 70 Ultra, which went live yesterday. It's a pretty good video. I mean, it's not terrible, and frankly, if you're still watching this shower of shit, then you clearly do not value your all too fleeting time on Earth at all. So why not spaff away some more of your limited existence on that bad boy? Techspert Weekly! Now, anyone who regularly watches this channel is not only an awesome and potentially unhinged human being, but also probably aware of my feelings towards Apple's iPhone SE 3. Like, if somebody broke into my home, smashed my telly, pissed on my rug and shat in my kettle, I would still dislike that person marginally less than I dislike the iPhone SE. So anytime I spot any internet chat about a potential iPhone SE 4 being released soon, it's kind of like receiving a call from the cops saying that my entire family just got wiped out in a horrific petting zoo accident. That said, a lot of recent rumours reckon that Apple's latest slightly less extortionate blower might be delayed until 2025, which feels like a bit of a stay of execution. But what do we know so far about the iPhone SE 4, and will it suck not quite as hard as the current abomination? Well, allow me to regurgitate some of the juiciest online morsels into your face like a mama bird feeding her ravenous young. Now, while the iPhone SE 3 is a rehashing of Apple's old iPhone 8 model, the SE 4 will supposedly reuse the chunky chassis of the reasonably recent iPhone 14. So gone are those insanely thick bezels and that Touch ID sensor, while the phone will have also grown to 6.1 inches and gained a screen notch roughly the size of Belfast. And some recent rumours reckon that the iPhone SE 4 won't actually support Face ID either because of the incurred costs of that facial recognition tech. So as there's no fingerprint sensor either, that basically means you're stuck entering a PIN or a password every time you want to unlock your bloody phone. Now, I'm so incredibly lazy that even if my trousers were to spontaneously burst into flames this very instant, I'd have to actually work up the energy to drop to the ground and roll around to quench those flames. So yeah, the thought of having to enter a PIN or a password every time I wanted to use my smartphone doesn't exactly fill my heart with happy joy. However, I'm going to use my immense prophetic abilities to say that this rumour is just a whole bunch of donkey discharge, and even Apple isn't mental enough to not have any kind of Face ID or Touch ID sensor on there. Now, it looks like the iPhone SE 4 could be lumbered with that old alert slider jobby rather than the fresh action button which was first slapped onto the iPhone 15, although a recent rumour piece reckons that Apple will indeed upgrade to that shortcut button. And you're basically guaranteed a tasty bit of Type-C USB action rather than all that old defunct lightning bullshittery. Cheers EU! More good news when it comes to the dinky 6.1-inch display, which should now be OLED tech like all of Apple's recent iPhones, rather than that god-awful LCD eyesore that adorns the iPhone SE 3. Thank Christ, because that thing was about as appealing to look at as a Jacob Rees-Mogg pin-up poster where he's wearing naught but his top hat. Ugh, I'm gonna have to self-censor that image, it's absolutely making me gag. I don't know, maybe he could be wearing a second smaller top hat over his crotchal area. He wouldn't even need to hold it on there if he arouses himself by thinking about poor people being doused in petrol and set on fire. Anyway, the iPhone SE4 will likely sport one of Apple's most recent chipsets, like the A16, which was smushed inside of the iPhone 15 flagship. So you can expect it to play games like Genshin Impact without emptying its metaphorical bowels. And the battery life, which was completely dreadful on the iPhone SE3, should hopefully be much improved for the SE4 with a larger 3200 mAh-ish battery crammed inside of that big old chunky brick-like frame. So here's hoping that iPhone SE4 lasts even longer than Rees-Mogg's boner at the thought of flambéed paupers. One of the other many lowlights of the iPhone SE3 was that creaky camera tech, but the iPhone SE4 may rectify this by upgrading that piece of hot oily garbage 12meg shooter to a fresher 48meg sensor, as also found on the iPhone 15. But just like that iPhone SE3, you can't expect that to be the one and only camera lens hoyed onto the back end of this smartphone. Don't expect any ultra-wide angle or telephoto shenanigans. And the rest of the iPhone SE4's specs and features reasonably easy to guess at, so you can expect IP68 water and dust resistance, a stereo speaker setup, and a measly 128 gigs of storage, as usual, non-expandable, so you'll have to upgrade that by throwing even more fat rolls of cash Apple's way. But anyway, dare I see it, given the rumours and the leaks and everything that are emerging thus far, it looks like the iPhone SE4 might not be total trouser. Could actually be a pretty decent alternative to many mid-range Androids if Apple can somehow keep the price under 500 quid. But what do you reckon? What features and other bits should Apple slap onto the iPhone SE4 to make it an absolute cracker? Bit of Android, maybe, that would be a good start. I can't wait to see the comments on this one. As always, those fanboys are going to be breaking their fingers, they'll be smashing their keyboards with such utter fury. But yes, please do let us know your thoughts down below, much appreciated. And now it's time for the part of the show that's even more tragic than a fatal pet and zoo accident. It's viewer comments. Viewer comments. Alright, let's start this week with Iramaji, who says, big ups for episode 200. How absolutely f***ed up is that? I've done almost 200 episodes of this utter ballbaggery. We're reaching like Dragon Ball Z levels right here. It's friggin' mental. So I've contaminated the internet with what, about 50 hours of this guff? I'm definitely called for some sort of ironic celebration. Maybe I'll do the show sober for a change. Next up, iOS Alive says, Techspert, I loved this video so much I had to hit the like button. And you know what, if you had a like button, I would absolutely smash the living daylights out of it as well. Much appreciated, buddy. Zippy Finley Adventures says, Arcane is a batshit bonkers bit of brilliance on Netflix. I've watched a bit of that, I think, back in the day. That's the one that's based on League of Legends, right? You know, I actually had to review League of Legends when it first came out for a video game website I used to write on. It has to be the hardest article I've ever done in my life because I had literally absolutely no fucking clue what I was supposed to be doing in that game. It's kind of like commissioning a badger to review a Tesla. Like, it might be the smartest badger in the world, but all it's going to do is chew the seat upholstery and shit on the dashboard. Me, I'm definitely more of a first-person shooter kind of guy, like the old school ones, Doom and all that good stuff, and boomer shooters as they're godforsakenly known these days. Next up, Mike4277 says, the grass is green. It kind of sounds like the start of some lovely romantic Valentine's poem. Did you just get one line in and you just couldn't be arsed anymore? The grass is green, the sky is blue, and I've got a massive stuck please. Grebo and Gaspod says, I was given a bottle of sake 15 years ago. It's still sat in the cupboard as I'm too scared to drink it as I've heard people's horror stories about it. Well, like pretty much all booze out there, you know, there's good sake and then there's bad sake. Bad sake is kind of like drinking wood polish. Take it from somebody who has drunk wood polish. But that good sake, it hits on a whole other level. Very smooth, easy going, just delicious. And on the subject of booze, specifically the Heineken phone that was featured in the previous episode, Secure Pasta says Dialer Crate should have its own button on there. Now that could be an incredibly dangerous feature. I'm not even that big a fan of Heineken, gotta say, but I can easily see myself getting smashed and then waking up the next day with 7 crates of the bastard on my doorstep. SSJ Rose 3 Simon says, what in God's name is that monstrosity? Not actually sure if they're talking about the Heineken phone or if they're just talking about me. A bit of a big one here from the Pieman66, FNAR, who says, hi Mr. Spurt, this week's mention of Heineken is quite spooky, as just the other day, in an unlikely and bizarre coincidence, I was wondering whether Heineken had improved taste-wise in the 20 or so years since I last tried it. Well, yesterday, as I was waiting at my local bus stop, I happened to notice an abandoned half-full can of Heineken on a nearby wall. I took the opportunity to see if the taste had indeed improved over the years, but unfortunately it turns out it still tastes like rancid piss. I mean, if it was any other brand than Heineken, I would have made the obvious suggestion that somebody faced with a full bladder and a complete lack of buses had taken advantage of a completely empty can there at the bus stop. But yeah, with Heineken it's pretty much impossible to tell. And speaking of crap beers you haven't drunk in a while, at a recent press event I was actually forced to drink Budweiser again. Not forced per se, but basically the options were Budweiser or water, and frankly they might as well have just had a gun to my head. And let me tell you, that beer is just as god-awful as when I used to neg bottles of it for £1 a pop back in the Sunderland bars in like the late 1990s. Metal Gods says, when can we expect a boring phone review? A boring phone, for anyone who didn't watch the previous episode, is the name of that Heineken phone. And the sample request has been submitted, so perhaps at some point if they actually bother to send one to me, I'm certainly not going to be buying the bloody thing. Neon Visual says, still waiting for my Corona phone. That's the one that comes with a slice of lime wedged into the SIM slot, no doubt. Last week I also told a story about how coconut rum screwed me up so bad at one time that I couldn't even think about it without gagging. Even just having a sniff of a Bounty bar makes me want to throw up. Well, Etienne Sharp says, my coconut rum type thing is Jack Daniels. I can't even bear the smell now after downing 16 of them one night many moons ago. I woke up on a roundabout. The old fallen asleep on a roundabout escapade, we've all been there, buddy. There used to be a great one in Sunderland that I sometimes took advantage of, with a proper nice soft flower bed and not too many broken bottles of Smirnoff Ice scattered about the place. Used to often faceplant that one for a nice little 4-hour kip on my stumble home. Smitchy says, will you do a long-term review of the Honor Magic 6 Pro? Abso-friggin-lutely, yeah. I certainly do try whenever time permits to do longer-term reviews of some of the phones that I really liked over the past sort of year or two. I did just re-review the Nothing Phone 2 this week, in case you missed that one, which is still an absolute banger, even better now with Android 14, a few extra bonus features chucked in there. Running out of time now, so I better make these the last couple of comments, and we're on the subject of Razer's batshit mental LED mouse mat thing, which we again covered last time. Mazix Conster says, 100 quid for a mouse mat, they're taking the Heineken. Bought an LED mouse mat from Maplin's about 20 years ago for a £5, does the exact same thing. Yeah, I do not get the appeal. I mean, presumably the kind of person who would be tempted by a flashy disco LED mouse mat has already got a flashy RGB desktop rig and flashy RGB headsets and all kinds of shenanigans. I mean, how many flashing accessories do you really need? Or are you like trying to turn your bedroom into an epilepsy hot zone? Seriously, just 5 minutes of playing Minecraft and you'll be writhing on the floor in a puddle of your own piss. And that's my general reaction to Minecraft anyway. And last up, Coreweezer says, no matter how much RGB Razer puts into its products, it will never offset how shit they are. Not a fan then. Anyway, massive thank you to everyone who commented last week, and to everyone who's actually continued to watch this for, the best part of 15 minutes. Jesus Christ. Yeah, please do smash your comments down below. We'll try and merrily stroll our way through as many of those as possible next week. And speaking of next week, what the is next week? Right, so this week the embargo on Huawei's latest blow, the Pura 70 Ultra, lifted, but that wasn't all I checked out in China. I came back with armfuls of fresh new shiny gadgetry, and the embargo on all that shenanigans lifts next Tuesday? Thursday? I should probably check this. Yes, it's Tuesday, so come back next Tuesday for even more hot Huawei goodness. Some proper horny Huawei shenanigans. And next week I'll also be reviewing a Samsung smartphone that won't absolutely skint you. There'll be plenty more delicious content to consume. So if you don't want to miss all of that absolute wankery, well, please do poke subscribe, ding that notifications bell, and do have yourselves a bloody wonderful weekend. Cheers everyone, love you!